This video is a demonstration of one of the most impressive machines I have seen in woodworking in a very, very long time. This is an introduction and demonstration of a machine called the Shaper Origin. Now, the Shaper Origin is basically a handheld router with the exception that it has CNC technologies built into it and then more. So what CNC technology means is that it has the capability to move around freely beyond what you're doing. Like this is a CNC router here, and the Shaper Origin is a hybrid of the handheld machine and this type of machine. And I was just completely blown away. I was at the International Woodworkers Fair and I came across Shaper's booth. And the reason I stopped there was because a lot of people have asked me if the Woodcraft CNC router bits would fit that machine. But as I started watching the demonstrations that they were doing, I really wanted to know more. So I asked one of the guys there, his name is Jake, if he would actually take some time to shoot a video to teach me and to show you what the Shaper Origin is really capable of. And they said yes. So we spent about 40 minutes together going through the whole thing, me not knowing the Shaper Origin machine, asking the questions that a novice would ask, who's really interested in what this thing is capable of. I was totally floored. So we're going to dive into this Shaper Origin thing, and you are going to be quite surprised as to what this is capable of. If you are interested in looking more into the Origin, then I'll put a link down below in the description, but you've got to watch this. You will be blown away too, and we are only scratching the surface. So let's get into this demonstration of the Shaper Origin. I'm going to ask all the dummy questions that anybody would ask that doesn't know about the machine so that you will get a good insight into what this thing is capable of just at the surface level that we talked about. So let's get going into this demonstration. IWhatwoodcraft.com. I'm Garrett with Woodcraft, and I have been asked many, many times about the Shaper Origin and whether the Woodcraft router bits will fit into this unit. But I want to kind of step back. I'm at the IWF, which is the International Woodworkers Fair 2024, and I came across Jake here from Shaper with the Origin, right?
Yep.
And that is called the Origin, right?
It is, you got it.
All right. And I figure it's a really good opportunity to educate people on the Origin. I know nothing about this, never had my hands on it, and asked Jake if he'd be kind enough to do a video with us to give you some education on this thing. And I'm really excited to see how this thing works. So, Jake, we're just going to kind of dive in and talk about the Shaper Origin and what it is and how it works. We'll dive into some of the things, make a couple things, I guess. So, yeah. First of all, number one, the Woodcraft router bits will fit in these things. So the collets on these, you can do eighth inch shank,
quarter, 3, 6, and 8 millimeter.
Okay.
So the largest one is 8 millimeter.
Depending on when you order it, do you select which one you want, or
if you order in the US, it's going to come with a 1/4 inch.
Yeah.
And if you order in the EU, it's going to come with an 8 millimeter. But of course, you can buy cheaper one you don't have.
Okay. All right. Okay. So. Tell us about the Shaper Origin.
Simplest way to describe
what is this machine?
It is a handheld CNC machine. That sounds a little crazy, but let me put it this way. You're driving it, you're pushing it around, but the magic is the spindle itself moves inside of the tool.
Now I want to play this little clip again to demonstrate what I mean by CNC technology built into it. You can see as we are pushing the Shaper forward, the motor is actually shifting back and forth. Basically, it's following a line that's programmed into it while you are just pushing the machine forward. Pretty cool.
Okay. So we start by creating a digital design file, or you can create something directly on tool. And when you start cutting, it's going to do all the work to keep you right on the cut line. And if you go outside of that cut line, it's going to retract for you.
Okay. Basically what Jake just said is there's a cut line that's in the computer of the Shaper Origin. And as you're moving it around, if you go outside that cut line, the machine is going to retract so that you don't goof up. It's kind of a foolproof kind of thing that's built into it, which I thought was super, super cool. Let's keep going. So I would design a file.
Yep.
Import the design here. Right, and then do whatever we're going to do here.
Yep.
So look, first of all, when we get into design work, right, what kind of software is required to actually do the design for whatever you're going to cut out with?
We like to call ourselves software agnostic because it doesn't matter what you use necessarily, as long as we can get an SVG file out of it.
SVG,
it's a
okay.
scalable
so
vector
SVG
graphic.
files, okay.
Yeah. We make a software called Shaper Studio that's geared more towards origin use, but if you already have a program that you're super confident in, by all means, as long as we can get an SVG out of it.
Anything that can generate an SVG, like VCarve, Carveco,
Yep.
the CNC router world.
And most of the time, if those can't export as an SVG, they can export as a DXF.
Okay.
And that's a really easy file conversion.
Okay. What, for kind of backing up, what was the demand that like brought the origin to life? Like someone said, oh, let's make a handheld CNC machine.
Good question. 2 students out of MIT, actually.
Okay.
A hardware engineer and a software engineer came together, put their heads together, and they said, we want to make a self-correcting router. And it was born. I think the original project was a bed frame, I want to say. They wanted to build a bed frame, and they're like,
okay.
So with that idea, it started in a single axis of a correction, and then went to 2 axes of correction, and then just from there grew and grew.
Okay.
And what you're looking at now is the 2nd generation of Origin.
Okay.
Pretty soon after the company launched, we were acquired by TTS North America, so we're now part of the Festool SawStop family, which is always a wonderful endorsement and
absolutely.
good group of people to be associated with.
Okay. All right. So it ended up being like a full-blown business now. You guys got a computer-driven handheld router, where when I was watching this thing run before, as they were moving around the line, which is displayed on the screen, we'll get to that in a little bit, but the spindle itself would actually move around on the housing. This assembly here would move around in this housing, so this actually has motion independent of this unit right here.
Exactly. If I move side to side, you see how that spindle is just staying right on my line?
Yeah, so yeah, this thing it's moving around. Bring a view of the top of this guy. And so you can see this is staying stationary while he's moving this around based on information that it has right here, which is the actual cut that we would end up doing, which is a joint here. So how does this thing, before we actually demonstrate this unit, how does this, first of all, I'm driving it.
Yeah.
Right, and there's a limit, right? It's just got a stroke of what, 1 inch?
About 1 inch total, half inch in either direction.
So I can drive it within that 1 inch stroke range, and it will stay on the line as long as I'm like not over like trying to get.
Exactly, and if you happen to fall outside of the line, it's just going to retract.
That's so sweet.
So it's going to keep you from messing up too bad.
Okay, and what's guiding it? It's got information in here that for the design track, and then what is telling it where it's at? You got all these little like domino dots here.
Yeah, it's all based on a vision system. So the tool has a camera right up the front of the tool, looking out in front of itself.
Okay.
And it's looking for these dominoes.
Okay.
These dominoes are basically just telling the tool where it is in space. And these come in a couple different forms. We are working on workstation right here, which is more or less for joinery, box joints, dovetails, mortise and tenon. It also comes in something called plate, which allows you to cut on the edge of doors or just like out in the middle of the floor. And then of course, if you just need to throw down some tape, it comes in a roll.
So if I'm working on a plain bench, like an MDF bench like you guys got over there or nothing, well, you got tape down there. So you just throw the tape down there and then... Now, this is something that isn't covered in this demonstration, but we're talking about the tape. And what I have found out since is you can work on any size project. So you take that tape and you can lay it across a 10-foot by 10-foot project, 20-foot by 20-foot project, scan the whole thing, as we'll talk about in just a little bit about how that scanning works, and then carve your project throughout that entire project. It's just like really fascinating that there is literally no limit to how big you can get as far as your carves with this Origin. Super, super cool. So how do you, like, no pun intended, find the Origin?
So to start off, we're going to create a scan.
Okay.
So the 3 steps are on the right hand side. We have scan, design, where we either make a drawing or import a drawing, and cut. So with scan, we'll hit new. And the idea here is to basically overlap your passes and get a good clean reading of all of those dominoes.
So it's reading all the dominoes and it's getting its orientation.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now I like to see what I'm working on. And now it's stitching all of those images together. And what we're seeing on the screen is now a representation of what's directly underneath the bit.
Okay.
Even though there's no camera down there,
Okay.
it's created what we call a workspace.
Okay.
Inside this workspace, we can start importing all kinds of different files.
Okay. All right. Okay. So
Let me go ahead and chuck up some material.
Okay. So what you're going to do here is you're actually going to make this type of joint right now.
I'm going to cut a tenon.
All right. So how do you know where to position it? So this is a unit that's like all assembled together then, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a joinery station, more or less.
I gotcha. Okay.
And where I'm
so
referencing...
this is like a feature that you can, an
Accessory.
option you can buy. Accessory, there we go. Okay.
Yeah. And honestly, I spend most of my time on workstation because I'm usually doing joinery. There's also something called the shelf, which slides down into that clamping face.
Okay.
And allows you to cut smaller things or to cut inlay parts, anything that can fit on this.
Okay.
And this is just a sacrificial board.
I'm going to link this down below at the same time. Down in the description of this video, I will link their website so you can check that out a little bit more. Do you guys have your own YouTube channel, by the way?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll link that down below too. Okay, so you've positioned this.
Yeah. It's
Right.
pressed firmly up against this reference face,
Okay.
and then it's clamped against the clamping face.
Okay.
So with that information, I know that this is not going to move. I need to create what's called a grid because I want to place this tenon perfectly in the middle.
Okay.
And the grid is where I physically probe these edges of the material, and it's going to lock an XYZ grid to my stock.
Physically probe.
Exactly. So we're going to lower the bit.
Okay. So right now you've got looks like maybe a 1/4 inch down cutter in there.
I do, and honestly, the best way to do it is to use the engraving bit because it's a solid 1/4 inch shank.
Yeah.
But for the sake of time, we'll use the bit. I'm lowering down.
So you press the button to lower it down.
Yep. And then on the screen here, I bring it over and I just make contacts with the back of my material.
Okay. And every time you make contact, you're pressing the button
Yep.
to tell it you're there.
And now I'm coming in to touch that face that's against the reference pin.
And now it has just found the corner of the material.
Exactly. So
now this is something that I thought was really, really fascinating. When it comes to CNC routers like this guy right here, you need to use a touch plate and you got to position your tool over the plate in the right spot and then run a touch cycle all the way around. And that can take 2 to 3 minutes just to get everything set up and run the whole thing. With the Origin, it was simply tell it you're going to find the corner and then lower the tool, come in and touch 3 points, and you got that location. That was really fast and definitely impressive.
if you're doing a bunch of the same kind of stock or repeating the operation, you just need to do this once, and then you come back and just swap out your part, and everything's still set up and ready to go.
Okay, so this has 2 cameras on it then?
Nope.
It's got one facing down?
Just one.
How did it see the material?
From that scan that we did originally, where I took a bunch of pictures with it,
Yeah.
it stitches all those images together and creates a workspace so that I can see what I'm working on down there.
Okay.
And what I see on the screen is just a representation of what is directly below the bit.
Okay, so like basically it took a bunch of snapshots, everything stitched together, and now it's done all its reference. Okay.
Yep. Now that we know exactly where the edges are of our piece, I can go ahead and import.
He rotated it, and you can see the image rotated with it. And that's all digitally done. Right?
Yep.
That's okay. So import.
So we have a whole host of different files right now. Most of these files are from this week of people writing their names over there with Shaper Trace. We have people downloading other projects. So I'm going to have to scroll through these for a second to find my tenon.
So the Shaper Trace feature is where you can actually draw stuff, and then it will, you can take images, and then it'll actually create its own vectors, and then you can just follow that trace line.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now, as soon as Jake mentioned this Shaper Trace tool, which is basically a freehand conversion tool that will take your freehand drawings and convert it into a vector, I had to see it. The main reason is because you and me as a CNC creator like to take freehand drawings or words, grandma's recipe or grandkids' drawings, things like that, and convert them into files and then carve them. The problem is I have not seen a software yet that will actually take a freehand drawing and actually make one single vector. Whenever we like trace this kind of stuff, it always creates vectors on both sides of the pen line, and it's just kind of a pain. So we have to do a lot of work. But this thing, this Shaper Origin Trace tool, this takes it to a whole nother level that you are going to be floored by. So we're going to get over to that, and then we'll get back to this joinery demonstration of how this thing works. And at the end of this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I've learned about who this machine is good for. So be watching for that at the end of the video. All right, let's check out this Shaper Trace. You're going to be so blown away at this little feature. I had to stop Jake for just a second because he talked about this hand trace thing. So we're going to sidestep the tenon joint there, and you're going to show me that, and then we're going to go back to that because I want to know about this hand tracing thing.
Yeah.
So what is this?
So we saw a space in the market where people wanted to be able to create digital designs, but they wanted to just draw something. They wanted to use a pen or pencil and physically draw something and then be able to cut it.
Okay.
So we created Trace to be able to take a hand drawing and instantly convert it into a vector. Okay. Instantly. The nice part about it too is...
Yeah, so before we dive in, so tell us about this.
Yep. So I drew this little infinity symbol. I sent it to Origin. I cut the brass out with Origin, and I came back to this box lid and cut the pocket out of the lid.
So you just drew that by hand?
Yeah.
Okay. What if I mess up on a line?
You can edit it a little bit, but go ahead and give me a good, clean signature. It likes...
my signature?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Most people want to engrave their signature on the bottom of their
all right, we'll do it. Let's see. We'll do my signature, so... And we'll put a happy face in there. Probably a little tight, but we'll just do it like that here. Let's just have some fun.
There you go.
Okay.
So now, take the trace frame, put it around.
And you're taking a picture? Is that what you're doing, or is this an app?
It's a special app.
Okay.
So come out, capture.
That was that fast. That was fast.
Do it one more time.
Okay. Picture.
There we go.
It just created the whole image.
So now we're looking at a vector that is ready to cut. You could send this to Origin, you could send it to a laser cutter, you could send it to a Cricut vinyl cutter or some kind of vinyl cutter. It's ready to go.
Really?
Yep.
Does that punch out G-code by any chance?
It does not.
Okay.
It's still just an SVG.
Okay, so yeah, you can import it as an SVG into the CNC router and you can carve it. Is this a free app, or does that come with the...
It is $100 for Trace. That's a flat fee. The app itself comes in that $100. It's not a subscription.
Okay. All right. So you just did another signature there.
Yeah. I went a little bit bigger so we can do a center line. And sometimes if it picks up any kind of shadow,
that was my shadow there. Okay.
It's super easy just to get rid of that.
Okay.
And we can swap from an outline, because you can see there's two lines right there.
Yeah.
That's accounting for the thickness of the pen. Convert it to a center line.
Oh.
And now we're just looking at a single.
Are you kidding me?
Single line. So for engraving,
I've been wanting to do that with my software for eons.
Exactly. It should not be that difficult, but it is on every other software. So we decided that was going to be a highlight of the tool. wanted to easily and quickly swap between
This
outlines.
is something that people who have the CNC software, they want to be able to do that.
Yep.
Just for that reason. Oh my God, okay. So I just want to reiterate what just happened, just in case you don't understand the next level of this Shaper Trace app, right? This is a separate thing you can buy independently of the Shaper Origin. When you actually freehand something and you have your design software convert it into vectors, it will outline that pen line on both sides. So let's just say you draw a 0. It's going to make a vector inside the pen line and outside the pen line. And then we have to do what we call a V carving. But basically what we don't have is a single vector that we can follow on a profile, or basically one cut, without having to deal with two separate vectors. This allows you to convert that line or lines or signature, whatever you create, into a single line that we have been longing for. So if this is something that you do a lot of, where you want to trace and get that single line vector, this is the only software I have found that actually converts it to a single profile line when you're converting a picture. And not to mention how fast it did the conversion. Totally blown away. I'm going to link that Shaper Trace app down below in the description. Wow.
All right, so let's go ahead and send this over. You even did a good job on your signature.
They did it on all. Okay. But we'll send your signature over. We don't need to. We can. So wait a minute. We can get rid of the smiley face.
Yep, just by
Okay.
select too much. There we go. Now we hit the blue check mark. Send to my files. Give it a name. Assign to. Done. So I just saved it. Now we can walk over to this tool.
So where did that send that to? Did that send that directly to your machine?
Directly to your Shaper Hub. So your Shaper Hub is kind of it's an online repository of all your designs. It's also a place where you can download other people's designs, and you can also download the entire hardware catalog, which is a bunch of different brands that we have taken their hardware files and digitized, and they can all be found there.
Hardware, meaning like hinge recesses and stuff like that. Okay. Now I know I'm jumping in quite a bit on this video, but I want to make sure you understand what's happening here and why I'm so blown away at what they have done to make this Origin work, and the other features that they've added, like this Trace app that they have. I'm not sure of everything else that app does, but that Trace feature just takes it right up there. Okay, so let's kind of rehash what just happened. I wrote my signature. He took a picture of it, cleaned it up really quick, and then sent it to Shaper Hub. And then you went to your Shaper Origin router, which is connected to Wi-Fi, which is also connected to your Shaper Hub, where there's a whole bunch of designs, including the ones that you do, and he imported it right into the router. That's how fast that happened. So not only do you have access to stuff you do, but you've got access to many, many things that other people have done that has all been put into Shaper Hub. I have no clue what all they've got in there, but just that feature, that accessibility to different designs, that's very cool. But I did see there were pictures of chairs and furniture, and there is not a lot of limitations to the Shaper Origin tool and the way they've organized it so that you can get lots of other files. So anyway, let's keep going. You can see how this thing carves out my name. You're going to be really floored at how this thing works. I don't have to actually write my name. The machine's writing it for me. I'm just kind of moving the machine along the pattern area that it created, which you're going to see. This is so cool.
Now we go back in design, import, and at the top of our list, and scroll all the way up. There we are. Now let's go ahead and rotate. Oops. Rotate it 90 degrees? No, 270 degrees. There you go.
Okay.
Boom.
And is that to scale?
That is to scale.
Okay, based on all the dots on that frame. Okay.
Part of the reason why we call it trace as well is you can trace hardware. Let's say you find a piece of hardware in an antique store and you want to be able to inlay it. Of course, We don't have a digital file for that yet, but you can trace it by physically holding it down and tracing the outside profile.
Okay.
So in addition to just hand drawing, you can also trace objects.
If I took a picture using the trace feature over there and just took a picture of that in the trace box, what would happen?
We try not to do that because there's usually weird shadows that get cast from that.
And that's hard to get rid of.
Yeah, so your best bet is going to be to actually draw a line around it, and it'll be super crisp.
Okay, so right now on the screen is my signature and your signature.
Exactly.
And right now you've got an engraver on there, a 60-degree engraver.
Yep. And it breaks these lines up, but you can plunge and cut each one of these.
So how does it know what depth we're going to?
I have an engraving bit in there.
You just set it to whatever depth.
Exactly. Okay. I'll say cut to an engraving depth of 0.02.
Okay.
And I'll cut mine real quick, you cut yours. Over this line.
That quick.
And it's a 60-degree engraving bit, so the deeper you go, the wider the cut.
Yeah.
For yours signature, it's a little tighter, so I'm going to pull it up a bit. And if you'd like to give it a whirl,
go for it. Let's rock and roll here. Okay.
So just see that little blue dot?
Yes.
Yeah, that's where you want to plunge on all these lines.
Okay.
Tap that green button.
Yeah, so the little blue dot right there, that's the plunge point we want to start at. Basically the start point.
Yep.
Okay. And when that dot turns green, then we're there. Did it go?
Tap that green button. There you go. And when you get up to some of the finer details, you can hold the green button, like this little loop-de-loop down here.
Okay.
Hold the green button and it will go as far as it can inside the corrective range. It's called auto.
So I'm holding it now.
Or just tap it right now, let it plunge. Bring it. Yeah, if you hold it, it's more like playing a game of chase. It's going to travel for you.
Oh, okay.
And you're just keeping up with it. It's really nice for doing fine detailed stuff.
Please show me Oh, yeah. As soon as it went down, it started to go into it.
Yep.
So when I was holding the green button, is it done?
Yep.
It's still tracing it, so what do I do?
Red button to retract. There you go. Last line.
Yeah. Okay, so when I... Very cool. That's my signature. So when I held the green button, what it did was, as soon as it plunged down in, it actually started to do the carving for me to the limit that it could. All right, very cool. All right, we're going to get back to the joints. Let's go.
Go. Okay, there's my tenon file. I made this in Shaper Studio. And now that I have that grid set up, you see how that's snapping around?
Yep.
I'm going to snap it right to 0, 0.
So it actually found the square. So it determined the size of the material, and then now it automatically centers. So I didn't have to go.
Exactly. Well, I built the file knowing that my material is going to be roughly this size or this size.
So if we run into that, so say I got a piece that size, and I want to put the cut right here. Do I have to tell in the file or in my design that I'm going to be 2 inches off at my start point? And
you can do that directly on the tool. When we go to the mortise, you can actually use a feature called position.
Okay.
To say, I want this point to be exactly 2.5 inches over and a half inch up.
Okay. That's so cool. Okay.
Now I'm going to place Now that file is stuck there. Like as I move, it's not moving with me. I could turn the tool off, I could put it on the shelf, I could come back a week later, and that's still going to be there.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. All the information and the location is stored in the tape. So it's really nice to be able to go back and forth between projects.
Yeah.
Like if I took this tool and I went over to that table,
Yeah.
I could cut an entirely different project, come back to this, and pick up right where I left off.
Because it's all saved in that one file.
Exactly. Now we're ready to get into cut.
So basically you can do multiple projects and leave that project, go do other projects, go on vacation, pack the machine up, go do other work somewhere else, bring that machine back to that original project, and because it's got everything programmed into it, you just literally call it up and it's ready to rock and roll. So that is another really cool feature about this, that you can have multiple projects set up and just bounce around. I mean, not that we want to do that, but it's definitely something that gives you a lot of flexibility on this machine to do lots of different things. So basically you can have a ton of workstations with that tape down and that workstation that we're doing, and just move around and come back to jobs whenever you want to. This thing's so cool.
So for this tenon file, I have two different types of cuts. I have a pocket cut, where origin is more or less going to act like a normal router. It's going to let me go in any direction. It's up to me not to climb cut. And my goal is to just hog all of this out. I want to clear away this extra material.
Okay.
It's only going to stop me if I get too close to that tenon. Not going to let me cut into that accidentally.
Now looking at the origin right now, the camera did not pick up what I was looking at. There are very clear lines on the screen that tells me what this tenon joint shape looks like and the general path that the tool needs to follow. So it's a very clear screen. I just want to let you know that what you're looking at right here is not what's actually on the screen. So right now we're not cutting.
No, we're just doing an air cut.
Okay.
After that, so that's a pocket. We come over to the outside cut of the tenon, and we plunge. And as long as I keep that little white dot inside the circle, it's going to be right on the money.
So you're talking that white dashed line.
Yep.
As long as it's inside that circle. So if you go outside that circle.
Yeah, for the sake of it, I'll go outside.
So that went down, watch this, and it pulled out. And then you got a little warning there. So.
Yep.
Okay.
We're going to make some sawdust?
Yeah, we'll make some sawdust. So how does it know what tool is in here?
You tell it. So right now it knows I have a 1/4" bit in there.
Okay.
But you would really just enter your bit diameter right there.
Okay.
Next thing you want to do is you want to make sure you know where 0 is.
How do you zero?
You Z-touch. It's going to lower the bit down and make contact. You go. All right, that's 0.
Okay.
Now any depth that we enter right here is going to be from 0 down. So we'll go down to 3/4. We're cutting straight to the final depth because we're doing end grain cutting. Yep. So it's pretty easy.
Okay.
If we were doing cross grain, we would slow it down a little bit and do different depth passes.
Okay. All right. So how do we? What do we do to start cutting?
All right. So remember how I kind of started that pocket cut out here and worked my way in?
Yep.
We're going to do that.
Okay.
Then we're going to retract, come back over here, plunge again, and finish it up.
Okay. And how? Okay.
That's my depth. I gave it a little bit of an offset, which we can go into after we cut.
Yeah. So the offset just offsets the tool a little bit from the final cut.
Exactly.
All right. And then so how do you turn on? And so
on button here for the spindle. We have vacuum.
Okay. And then
go for it.
Now how to go down? Oh, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
You're gonna tap that green button once and hold still. Now we're cutting. You're gonna go that way.
Can I dictate the speed at which it plunges?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Exactly.
Whoop. Okay, so I slipped and it pulled right out.
Yep.
So when I go back in, I press the green button again.
Exactly.
So why did it do that?
It was still plunging while you were moving.
Oh, okay.
Now you're good.
Okay. All right. So now as long as my white circle is, like right now the white circle's inside, but I can see just from the, I should probably be cutting it out instead of a slot.
Yeah, we'll do that. There you go.
And it's showing me what I've cut, what I haven't cut. And as it's going,
I would start out here first and work your way in.
Watch this. So put the camera right here. I'm going to start to try to come into the joint here, and you're going to see the router move. It's not letting me go into the joint. All right, let's get outside. Get that little bit out of there. Oh, this is fun. You know, I've heard about this machine for quite a while now.
And this is your first time using it.
It's first time using it.
I love that.
You know, it's one of those things like how the hell that cannot possibly work.
Right.
When you don't actually see it working. So right now I've cleaned up most of the material. So now when we go to the finish cut,
we'll be taking off a lot less, and it'll allow us to have a really nice cut quality.
So, and it's constantly adjusting as I move along.
Yep. Now that you're done, you can hit that red button.
Okay.
It's going to retract. And hit that green button one more time, because now you're on the outside path.
Okay, so that was a roughing cut, and it knew that was a roughing cut.
Exactly.
Based on the offset that was set there.
More or less, yeah. A pocket has a built-in offset, because usually when you're pocketing, you're just kind of hogging out material.
Yeah.
So we always say you do a pocket first, and then you change it and finish up the cut.
So it's forcing me to do a rough cut and then a finish cut.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, so I can hit the red button again, the green button. Red button, what's the red button?
Red is retract.
Okay. So you got a vacuum tube right in there that's going to pick up the sawdust as it moves along.
There you go. Much better.
All right.
All right, bring it back in.
So right there, it's not going to let me do anything right now, right?
Exactly.
So I'm right over the middle of the cut, and I'm going to try to make it plunge, and it won't do anything. So when I see that dot floating around, then now I can plunge down into it. And the whole while, the machine is adjusting itself. I love technology. Here we go. So I just cut this. It did it all in one depth cut, one full depth.
Yep.
Super clean. So here's what's really interesting about this is I'm just moving it around, making sure that dotted line is staying. The circle is in that dotted line on the screen, and so long as I'm doing that, this is all self-adjusting to make sure it stays on the line to cut the joint. So I'm moving like this as I'm going across, and this thing's adjusting the entire way.
Yep.
How fast does that adjust?
Oh, I couldn't give you an exact number, but usually fast enough.
Okay. All right, but if I goofed up, I can come right back into it and finish that cut up.
Exactly.
Okay.
And if you goof up, it depends on how deep your cut is,
Yeah.
right? Because it does need to
that's all.
pull the tool out.
Yeah, depth of cut.
But, you know, when you compare it to a plunge router that is not going to pull up for you, it's a lot better.
Yeah, okay, all right.
But it's very, very fast.
Yeah. And so these are other cuts that they've made. So we don't need to cut the next one, but can you show me how to how you said we can tell it exactly where we want
Absolutely.
the mating.
And the setup is really
Joint.
fast, or the setup and the cutting is really fast.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to take, we just did the male part of the joint, and now we're just going to pocket the female part of the joint here, and using the same file.
Exactly. All right, I'm just going to raise this.
Okay.
Because now we're not cutting around the material.
Okay. And this whole unit is an accessory that you can purchase with your origin. Okay.
Yeah, it's called Workstation.
All right. Is this something that's recommended that a lot of people are finding to be really useful?
I highly recommend it, but it also depends on the kind of work you're doing.
That's true.
For somebody that wants to be able to cut joinery and stuff like that, absolutely.
Okay.
If you have no interest in cutting joinery, but you just want to cut hinges all day, I would say buy plate.
Okay. Okay. So while he's setting up, I got to say that was a ton of fun to actually do that. Not really worry about the let's just say the high level craftsmanship that I would be putting into this thing. Making something, not being a skilled woodworker, put it that way. I'm a CNC machinist. I can design perfect stuff all day long, but when it comes into actually doing the cutting by hand and stuff, I'm not that experienced with that. And this really compensates for something like that. As you're setting that up, what are some of the other things that people can do with a unit like this that you see?
All over the industries, people are doing a lot of inlays. We have hardwood flooring teams doing like these gorgeous inlays directly in the floor of a customer. So they can cut all the positive parts of the inlay, take all those to the client's house, and let's say it's like a family crest or something that they want to put in their floor.
Yeah.
And they can do that right on site with the precision of a CNC. But
So you put a diamond bit in there. How does it handle some of the harder materials? Like if someone wants to carve into like a granite floor?
That is a good question. We usually don't.
Of course, you need water to cool it.
Yeah, no water in this tool.
Yeah. Okay. So we do have some limits, just like a lot of machines. Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily go at stone. I mean, soapstone stuff, it can definitely do it, but primarily wood, plastics, and soft metals.
Okay.
So brass, copper, aluminum, no problem, as long as you're using the right bit.
For inlays, can you do the male and the female, establish the glue gaps and all that stuff?
Absolutely.
Okay. We won't dive into that, but that's a lot of people would want to know that.
So we'll go ahead and remove this.
All right, so...
And it looks like we're still looking at the tenon. So I'm going to go ahead and update my scan real quick, just so we can see what we're looking at.
Okay. And now we got the long piece of wood there, okay.
And I'm not going to worry about changing my guide, or my grid.
Your 0 point, basically.
Because I'm using the same reference faces. I'm using the back edge here and the side edge here.
Okay.
Now I can take that same tenon file and let's say I want it 2 inches in.
Okay.
Tap place. And instead of cutting the outside, we're going to change that to the inside.
Okay. So how did you tell it 2 inches in?
I physically moved. I'll go ahead and do that again. Slow it down.
So brought the file up.
So right up here, I have an X and Y readout.
Okay.
And it's telling me exactly where the top corner of that is. And it's moving in 1/2 inch increments right now.
Okay, and you can change that
Yeah.
grid as you want. Okay.
And if you instead just want to tell it, hey, I want you to go to 1 3/8, you can actually just type in 1.375 3/8, and it scoots over to it.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So perfect. We'll snap that. We'll change this to an inside. And we put a 3,000 offset on the tenon. So let's go ahead and just do 1,000 there. Normally what we do, and little disjointed. We've been doing this all week.
Yeah.
In normal woodworking, you want to cut the mortise first, and then the tenon. You're basically shaving the tenon off to fit the mortise.
Yeah.
In Origin world, you want to do that in reverse.
Okay.
It's always better to cut the tenon true to size, and then when we cut the mortise, we can fine tune that fit by 1/1000th of an inch at a time until we get the perfect friction fit.
I got you. Okay. Now I want to explain to you exactly what Jake just showed me, which is something that, number one, I did not expect to find in the Origin, and number two, makes it a much tastier machine to have in my workshop, and you may want to consider it for yours. When it comes to creating joints and inlays, you want to have a perfect fit. And doing that by hand is extremely tedious. Now, when you are carving one part of a joint, the male part, and now you're going to carve the female part, you don't want it to be a sloppy fit. So what you want to do is undercut the female part and then start fitting the male part until you get a good fit. The Origin has this feature where you can offset the tool so that it will undercut the female or overcut the male so that you can do your fit and then come back in and cut it again until you get just the right fit. And that's the offset feature. So that was something I did not expect to find in the Origin. The other thing I did not expect to find in it was the accuracy in which it can do that offset to 1/1000th of an inch. So you can really get beautiful fits with the Origin. This is good for, like I said, inlays and joints. If you want to make puzzles, different games, or square pieces that need to fit together, this offset feature really enhances this Origin.
All right, for this one, I'm going to go ahead and turn on auto pass.
Auto pass.
So normally, without auto pass, for every depth cut, say you want to cut a 1/4 inch deep all the way around, retract, 1/2 inch deep all the way around. Auto pass takes that whole process and turns it into one long cut, and it will ramp down to the next depth for you. So instead of having to retract in between each one, it's all
So we can just move around, keep moving around, and it's going to continuously.
Yep. So I've turned on auto pass, and it's going to say first one's 1/4 inch with 0.024 offset.
Okay.
105, boom, and then our finished cut is right there.
Okay. All right. So we're going to make 4 passes around this thing.
Yeah. And I'll do this one. If you keep your eye on the tool, you're going to see it ramping down as we go through.
Okay. So it's doing a lot of it by itself. All she's doing is moving back and forth. Show it from the top.
Now we're going to finish that.
Now it's doing the final cut. That was wild.
Pretty fast, huh?
Yeah, yeah. So just to reiterate what he was doing was he was on auto pass, put it in there, you hit the plunge button, and all he was basically doing was moving back and forth, not following the path of the joint. The machine was actually doing the work.
Yep. And that should be a perfect friction fit.
That's sweet. Now our camera angle is not set up right on this one because I told my camera guy to go from the top. I want to explain to you basically what just happened here with this auto pass thing. First of all, the female that we were just cutting was 1 inch deep and it was going to be 4 passes. All Jake did was take the shaper Origin and move back and forth. What the router did, the Origin, it ramped in as he was moving back and forth until you got to the bottom. So he was not trying to do anything, just keeping things inside the lines on the screen, and the shaper did the rest. So let's kind of get down to the nitty gritty then. First, when does this benefit somebody? Number one is when you don't have a lot of room. What are some of the other, like CNC machines take up a lot of space?
They absolutely do.
So I see a lot of people, they get them because they don't have the room for a CNC.
Right. You can put this back under the shelf and you can take it out only when you need it. The other thing is portability. It's really nice to be able to bring this to the clients home or to the job site. It's a nice, we call it an insurance policy for a full-size CNC.
Okay.
Because often full-size CNCs, they're your money makers. They're pumping out parts over and over. If you want to do something on the side, instead of stopping your full machine from production, you can still have that level of accuracy and digital capability with this tool.
Okay.
So it's a nice relationship with a full-size CNC.
All right. What about the 2.5D relief carves and stuff? Is this capable of handling those?
We don't do, how do we say it? Like, you can't cut a topographical map with Origin, mainly because the tool rides on the surface.
Yeah.
You know, big gantry CNCs are coming down from the top, so they can do a lot more in that sense. We say 2.5D because you tell it exactly what depth to cut to. It's going to plunge to exactly that depth, and you cut.
Okay. All right. So it doesn't do effectively what people say 3D. It doesn't do. You can't do 3D. You can't do 2.5D. Yeah. So yeah, but even so, I mean that stuff takes a lot of time anyway.
It does. You know what it also does? It requires something called G-code. Well, you know, G-code. We wanted to intentionally keep this a little bit more simple and approachable by just requiring an SVG file.
Yeah.
Instead of having to mess with all the kind of cut paths and depth paths and stuff like that. It really is just you determine the depth as you're going through it, so it's a little bit more approachable and intuitive.
All right, and this thing weighs, feels like it's maybe about 6-7 pounds. What is, do you know offhand?
I think it's more like 16, 18 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens if it catches itself? If something gets under it and we're cocked on it, does it?
It'll most likely retract.
Okay.
Because it notices a big enough shift. I don't think I've had that happen to me. Or I don't think I've had that happen to me where something's gotten caught under it. But
okay.
Sometimes, like where our dust collection was, or our hose was clogged and we were getting a bunch of dust underneath, you'll start to feel the resistance build up. At that point, you should always retract, clear out your space, make sure your work surface is nice and clean. Because the other thing to consider too is it's using a vision system, so you want to make sure that your dominoes don't have a bunch of dust on them. Yeah. A little bit of dust is okay, but we try to keep it clean.
Okay, and dust collection is absolutely necessary here.
I would say so. Yeah. And any tool.
Yeah, and they got a shield here that comes with it. So you guys sell a dust collector with it?
Nope. We sell the hose. It's a really nice braided hose, but it works with most dust collectors or dust extractors.
Okay. And what is the warranty on these guys?
It's a 2-year warranty.
2-year warranty. What does that cover?
Mechanical issues, software issues. We have one of the. I think we have one of the best customer service teams in the industry. Okay. We're very responsive, and if it is a mechanical issue of any kind or it gets damaged, you can send it into us. We'll fix it in-house and send it back. Yeah. And if any software issues arise, we're able to fix it remotely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's one unit available, right? It's just like you don't have a Shaper Origin, a Max Pro, and a Shaper Origin. It's just
Shaper Origin, and then the kind of ecosystem of accessories around it.
And then software updates. What happens when you guys have updates?
Roughly on like a once a year schedule, we release a software update. With that comes just kind of like back end tweaks and stuff like that to constantly improve the quality of the tool. But the really fun part about it is we usually add a new extension or new features within the tool every time we release a software update. So last time we did a software update, we added under the Create tab, we added slots and polygons. Okay. So you don't need a computer to create a slot, which is basically a tenon, mortise and tenon.
It just designed its own slot.
Yep.
Okay. How do you update when someone gets it? Do you have like USB ports or something on it?
It does have a USB port right inside of the tool. Okay. We always recommend that you keep your tool on Wi-Fi. So you can hook
On
your tool.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, you can hook your tool straight up to Wi-Fi, because that makes the whole like getting your files from your computer onto your tool, it makes that super seamless.
So you can just Wi-Fi.
Yeah. It's something called Shaper Hub. You upload your file to Shaper Hub. It holds all of your design files, and it goes straight to the tool.
Okay.
But don't worry if you don't have Wi-Fi in your shop. You can always just put your files on a thumb drive and stick it in the side of the tool.
Okay. All right. Sweet.
And then about once a year, we send out emails. We put out social media blasts about the fact that a software update is available. So if you didn't have Wi-Fi in your shop, I'd recommend bringing it into your house for a moment, just so it can connect, update, and take it back out.
Okay. This is really cool. So I mean, at the end of the day, people can say, well, how much does this thing cost? What's generally the price tag on one of these guys?
The tool itself is $28.99.
Okay.
And then you start adding things to it. We have the workstation, when you combine the two, you get 150 off, I believe. 150 off the complete system. So that's workstation and plate. And at that point, you could do pretty much anything.
Okay. So I mean, you're buying a little CNC machine. So for some people, that price sticker shock, but you are buying something that's going to. It's a computer-driven machine. So much stuff is done for you in here already.
It really, really is.
That
it's
is
also
like nuts.
I'm
in love with this thing.
It's the kind of tool that gets better with time too. We're constantly improving it. I mean, it's already rock solid, but being able to work on the software and add new features to it, it's just going to get better and better.
Now you might be thinking, what is the Shaper Origin good for? Well, I've already talked about joints and inlays, but you can make projects like this, your full-blown CNC projects with unlimited size, which is really fascinating. I am really blown away by this machine, and I am ordering one. But I will put information down below in this video where you can actually go research the machine some more, to the Shaper website where you can get it, and information for you as to whether this is a machine for you or not, some of the different uses, and who might want to use it. If this video is helpful, give me a thumbs up and a comment down below, especially if you're an Origin user. Give me and whoever's watching this video some of the benefits that you found with it, what you think about it. Do you recommend it? I know I'm getting it. I don't know about you. But again, go down to the description below and check this thing out, the information I provided for you. Thumbs up. I've got lots of CNC videos for you to learn CNC, and now we're starting to get into the Shaper Origin. Super, super cool. Have a great CNC day. IDCwoodcraft.com